what kind of led you into saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and independently drop my own CD, my own project, and move forward because there's so much going on right now in my head, and I want to get it out there, and I just don't have time to be waiting for the labels and all that good stuff. What led to My Name Is Tamar?
That's a good question. I'm not going to lie and say it was one thing in particular. I mean, the way it came about was I auditioned for Mr. Perry, got the part on the spot for the marriage counselor in 2007. We went on the road in 2008. They didn't know that the play was going to be so successful that it carried over into another 4 months or 5 months. And it wasn't until it carried over into 2009, the beginning of 2009. Well, I take that back. In 2008, I started working with some of the musicians on the road, but we didn't really focus on collabing and putting the songs together for an album purpose until maybe 2009. And what made me do it was because it was nothing but time on my hands. On the road, you report to the theater around 6 or 5:30 every day, and you're literally doing nothing. There's times where I could be in a city for a whole week and be doing nothing until 5 o'clock. And that's when it kind of just settled in, like, what am I going to do with this time? And so we were already recording, and the guys I recorded with are called the Jets. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia. They're musicians. And we just kind of kept brainstorming. You know, I was inspiring them. They were inspiring me. We would just keep hanging out. Hey, let's just settle on the album. Let's figure out the sound. One day we were on a bus, and I was like, oh, I know my sound. It's rock R&B. So that's when we started focusing on topics for the album. And I was like, you know, a lot of people always dream about being on the red carpet. All right, let's write a song about red carpet. So that's how the album came up. A lot of people say, how do you write your songs? I don't have a method to how I write my songs. I think I write the hooks first. The idea is like, oh, let's write about the red carpet, and the song is called Red Carpet, and we go from there. And then once again, it's that whole mother-daughter relationship, mother-father relationship. You don't realize the values of what they teach you until they literally, you know, send you off to college, or, you know, you get married, or you go through a life situation, and you're like, oh, my mom did tell me that. That's how it felt once recording the record. It was like Prince told me about this. Prince said, you know, record companies are going to do X, Y, and Z. He already said, Tamar, you're such a phenomenal live entertainer. You need to focus on your live shows. Everything else will come. Prince was the one that said independence is freedom, and if you want to be free, that's where the careers come from. If you want to be famous, that's a totally different route. I mean, that's when everything started to just set in like, oh, my gosh, he told me this. He told me this.
Wow.
So I sent him the single, Heartbeat, and he called me right away. He was like, Tamar, this is why you're my favorite singer. You know, so it made me just kind of cry because I was like, oh, my gosh, you know, I had his approval. Not that it really mattered like I was going to just stop, but, you know, his opinion is highly well respected in the industry, and let alone me. So that's how the album came about. It wasn't one particular thing. It was just kind of like an aha moment, like, what am I doing with my time on the road? You know, what am I doing with my money but going to the malls in every city and they're the same stores? You know, it was kind of like a, wait a minute now. How do you build wealth and build a career? You don't do it by just chilling in the hotel till 5 o'clock every day. It just doesn't work like that. So
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about Love Speaks before I let the audience listen to it.
Love Speaks. It came out of nowhere. It was actually one of the last. Was it the last? I think it was the last song that I added to the record. And I kept saying, guys, I need a song because Mr. Perry's a genius. Every song he has written for me in his plays has been ballads. And he kept saying, your voice is just something very rare. And I finally said, okay, guys, I need a ballad. I need a ballad that's going to show off my vocal ability. And I still haven't tapped into it just yet on my album. But this is the closest song to that.
Very good, very good. And, you know, that kind of goes into why Tyler Perry got you into several of his plays. And, you know, that is like the next big thing for a singer and performer to put on their resume, on their, you know, on their website is like, I perform in a Tyler Perry play. When in the beginning everyone was like, I don't know if I want to do Tyler Perry. Now everyone's fighting tooth and nail to be part of his production.
True. That's true. You know? That is so true.
And how is it being a part of that really cool alumni group of performers to say, hey, I was a part of Tyler Perry's you know, repertoire of work?
It was cool because I didn't. sometimes I think it's best when you don't know certain things when you go into it. Like, you know, Tyler's work is great, but I didn't know the gamut of the people who had worked with him for a while. So when I came in, I was really like a newbie. Like, I was kind of like, oh, okay. They're like, yeah, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, oh, nice to meet you. And I didn't know that they had worked with him before. I didn't know what works they had done previous. I treated everyone new. I didn't treat them like, oh, my gosh, you know, nice to meet you. You know, so that kind of helped me a little bit. But now when I get to work with Cheryl Pepsi Riley, Chandra Corelli, Palmer Williams did the marriage council with me. I mean, theater is just a great avenue to hone in your skills with other excellent actors and actresses who take their work so serious. And that's what I love about working with Mr. Perry, because he chooses serious people about the craft. Like, they're not joking when it's time to be serious. You know, you don't have to tell people to be quiet all the time in rehearsal. And, you know, it's just a well-respected environment. So it's been great working with them.
Wow. So let me ask you, is it harder doing the plays as opposed to promoting your new CD project?
The plays are way more easier than my album. And I wouldn't necessarily say easier like in a good or bad way. It's just the play, things are kind of all there. You know, the itinerary is there. You know, you have someone that you stay in contact with to know when rehearsal schedule is. You know, I rarely have to ask questions when it comes to working with Mr. Perry. Versus in my music career, independent really means independent until you get, you know, other people behind you to really support it. And independent has the best pros because it's independent. You have the freedom to say when you want to do things. You can research things. You can reach out to people yourself, you know. And I'm learning the way the music industry and the entertainment is shifting anyway. The business is shifting. A lot of people really like talking to the artists more so than talking to managers and agents. And I've never had a manager. I do look forward to having an agency, but it's great when I can really voice who I am and they know who I am based on what I say I am versus someone trying to, you know, convince someone. So that's the advantage of the independent side. The downfall is like you have to make your flight itinerary. You have to say when you want to travel somewhere. You have to, you know, it's a lot more to it, but it's very rewarding in the end because you're your own boss. You know, you literally are your own boss. So.
But,
it's cool.
But, you know, I tell artists all the time that sometimes you have to kind of get that grounding of knowing. It's like, you know, having your own company. You can be CEO all day. You can have a staff, but if you don't know how to do or have an understanding of everyone's role, then it's hard to kind of know, you know, what it's going to take to, you know, really take your company and your brand to the next level if you have no real understanding or concept of everybody's role and position. So you're learning that hands-on.
That's true. And now, you know, people laugh at me because I'll be around certain people who are supposedly hired to do something, and eventually I'll be like, now what do you do again? Because sometimes some things just don't make sense to me. Sometimes, like, your position crosses with someone else, and after a while you're like, and I'm paying you to do what again? Like, it just becomes so confusing. So I actually like being here. It's a lot of work. I wouldn't say it's stressful because I don't let myself stress out because I do yoga. But it can get to the point where you're just like, oh, my gosh, why don't these people get it, you know? So.
Well, you know, we love the fact that you know, took the time out to come through Chicago.